everyone, and welcome to the Fireside Chat. This is number 55 at a special time because we were trying to. We normally do these a little earlier, but I wanted to get this guest on very badly, so I was willing to put it on a little later and delay. Well, actually, I just had an early dinner instead of the normal way I would do it. Welcome, Terrence, Popp, to the show. You have a YouTube channel under your name, but it's also found under Redonkulous in your website.
Redonkulous.com.
Yeah, redonkulous.com. And for people who don't know, can you tell them a little bit about what you do on your channel?
Well, we pretty much talk about anything that's wrong and ridiculous at the same time. That's redonkulous. And then we tell it how it is, and a lot of people get offended about it these days, and we don't care.
Yeah.
No.
Yes. Straight, it's the straight dope.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer it that way.
Yeah,
it's
for
easier.
sure.
It's easier. Sure, it hurts, but you know what? I mean, if you're fucking up, you're fucking up.
That's right. I used to, for stuff that was more than ridiculous, I used to say it was recalculous. Because I figured...
Yeah. I was thinking of getting that domain. In fact, I might already own it. I'm not sure.
Did you know anyone that you lost in the military?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I know a lot of guys.
Oh, shit. And, well, if you don't want to go into any detail or anything about any of those guys...
Well, I don't want to mention their names on here.
No, you don't have to do that.
Right.
But, like, what kind of stuff happened? Like, with the Navy guys, they were talking about how some dudes, apparently, but from being cooped up, there was guys who tried to commit suicide, shit like that. So I don't know what kind of stuff you saw or had experienced.
No, I know about a half a dozen guys who committed suicide. I know like 5 or 6 guys I served with, that got tore up pretty good, and then about another 6 or 8 guys who got zeroed out.
Zeroed out?
Yep, they got deactivated.
Shit. Yeah.
Happens.
So no, hey, that's the cost, right? That's what we pay.
Well, I mean, I knew the deal.
Yeah.
I willingly oh sure, send me, I'm cool, and they did several times.
Yeah. And here you are. So, what made you want to make YouTube content?
I have some issues with PTSD I still have it, but I was talking to a therapist offline, and I was paying cash.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally, I'd go in there, and I'd start talking, and this guy would, laugh his ass off for, an hour at what I would talk about. And I'm like, why am I paying this guy $150 an hour?
To entertain him.
I can make a video, and everyone can laugh at it.
Yeah.
I'm like, cool. It's, one, it keeps me from going insane. I think it's much more productive for me to shoot my mouth off on, for comedy than it is to grab a rifle and vote from the rooftops, because I don't condone that, but some guys get pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And, if I can help another guy out there going through some of the same shit I went through, if I save one guy, it's all worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've had a couple guys write me saying I was I was about to put the gun in my mouth, and they stumbled across my videos, and they watched them, and they're like, hey, I'm not the only one going through this.
Mm-hmm.
People have come out the other side. Yeah, you're taught pretty good when you come out the other side, but you make it to the other side, you'll be all right.
Yeah. And
that's why I made that one video for Dunks called The Long Game.
Mm-hmm.
Because, guys, you walk into family court and you have a penis, you're a loser.
Yeah.
And they'll come up with anything to, screw you over. And,
Yeah. Well, the system is set up to essentially to exploit dudes. I mean,
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And the whole Title 4D money and the 85-15. In reality, you look at the stats, 85% of the time, the children go with the mother.
My father, he never laid a hand on us, not once. My mom, whenever she got the, whenever she felt like it, basically. I mean, she got angry easily, and she would lash out with violence and language. My father, he would keep quiet, you know. And it was weird, but I had him. Like he was all right. Like if you know, he was an all right role model, and I'm grateful to have my dad, because a lot of kids, because I live in a low income part of Chicago, and there are no fathers around here. Like they're just not. It's just basically a bunch of minority women. Like I'm Puerto Rican, a lot of Puerto Rican women, a lot of black women having kids, no dad around, and they're probably having them from a short list of dudes. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, if a neighborhood has 100 men and 100 women, and 100 women are sexually active, they're probably having sex with like 5 of those guys, the top 5 guys, right?
Yeah, the biggest thugs.
Yeah, the biggest thugs, the most alpha dudes, whatever. And the funny thing is that they all have kids from the same short list of men, and those kids grow up, and they start meeting kids that are their relatives. So there's like this accidental inbreeding that occurs, that's unintentional, but it's what happens when you like have like a tight knit community in a big city where no one moves out, and you have multiple generations of kids that they don't know who their father is, and the mother doesn't care because the state's taking care of her, so she doesn't have to like chase down child support, and she's getting Section 8 housing, and she's getting all her groceries taken care of and everything else. She's married to the state, which is commonly what happens in these lower income areas. And then her kids become sexually active, and because there's no dad, the girls develop they hit puberty earlier, and the boys go out and they're just running around like and just like with nothing to do because her mom can't manage them and she doesn't really want to. And then they end up meeting each other when they become sexually active, don't realize they're related, and then they start having sex and making babies. So you do get like a degree of inbreeding that happens. This is like a serious problem.
Well, the thing, I did a video on this like 2.5 years ago. I called it System Surfers, and I explained how these people can abuse the system, and they can still work part-time, and they get to keep all that money, and they get all, I mean, it's insane.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you graduate high school, you'll basically earn $1.2 million in the course of your life. Now, one of these women who can stay at home, work part-time, have kids all she wants, and when you put the dollar value of her benefits and her income together, she'll outperform the guy with the high school education 2 to 1.
2 to 1.
2 to 1. When you get up in the morning, you are going to produce the average American he'll walk out his front door with about 10 to 12 give a dams. He'll have about 5 to 6 give a shits and 1 to 3 give a fucks. And if you don't think that's correct, I'm right. I mean, I'm wrong. I mean, when you get up in the morning, what is the first thing you do?
Make my coffee.
You brush your teeth.
Okay, I brush my teeth. Yeah.
And you know why? Because you give a damn about your teeth. Teeth are good. All right. And if you just brush your teeth and don't floss, your teeth will be gone roughly by 50. Mm-hmm. So if you want to keep your teeth past 50, you have to give a shit about them. And the difference is dental floss. It's just like that. And if you don't think you have any extra dams to give, go ahead and walk around town, cross the street not giving a damn, and see what happens to you. You're going to get hit, and then you're going to be injured, and now you have to spend a bunch of give-a-fucks to get around. That's what's happening. Now, with the male and female thing, when you pass away, you're going to go to the coroner's office. They'll put you in the refrigerator, and then they'll look under the sheet and see what equipment you have is south of 8 Mile, which is the belly button. And then they're going to check one of 2 boxes. One is an M, one is an F, male or female. Now, in between those boxes, there's an empty space. We have a lot of people in our society who are spending give-a-fucks on that empty space in between the M and the F. And that's why you have 70 fucking different genders. It is insane.
Yeah. There's actually over 350 genders.
It is so stupid.
It's so stupid, yes.
It is. You know what? And if you wanted to reverse that shit, you got to get men back into the family unit.
Mm-hmm.
Because, women do not raise boys well.
No.
No. I mean, after the kid's like 12, She doesn't have the horsepower to control the kid. You know
Yeah.
what? My mom would hit me after I was 12. I like turn away and laugh. I'm like, I mean, come on. The trans people feel like they were born in the wrong body. All right. That's terrible. But the way I look at it, it's like the worst practical joke God played on somebody in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, maybe they'll, you know, when they die, they'll go back and get recycled and come back down here. But they better kick the tires and see what the fucking's going on before they come back down here. Otherwise, they're going to keep going through the same old bullshit. You know, I just don't get that. Like, they're a female born in a male's body. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah. Oh, the thing is, though, the trans thing, that's a separate animal. That's got nothing to do with, like, that's the thing. Like, okay, here's the thing. When you're a trans person, you have gender dysphoria, which is in the CR5 as like a mental disorder. This is how they sort of classify it. Unfortunately, there's no treatment for it. The only thing you can do is, like, is there's therapy, and then to maybe help if you don't want to change your gender, and then there's transitioning, and that's your option. But the thing is, with trans people, that is either a man that wants to be a woman, which I think the majority of cases, like the overall, I think it's like 70% of all trans people are male to female, and then 30% is female to male. So it happens to men way more often, but we don't talk about that. But they are not becoming, or they don't have a desire to be some other gender. They want to be the opposite gender. So when you say, if you're an activist that says gender exists on a spectrum and no one is really all the way male or no one is really all the way female, you're actually making an argument against trans people. Because what you're telling them is, you're not actually a woman in a man's body or vice versa. You're just somewhere in between. And it's weird because when you make the argument against gender as a social construct, which trans people, since they exist, they already kind of debunk that whole, you know, gender as a social construct thing by existing at all, then you're also telling them that you know, because you believe in 300 some odd genders, what they're trying to do is it actually exists in contrast to that. It's like you can't have both of these things at once. We be willing, because many of the trans people I know are pretty reasonable and they understand that they're outliers, right? They're like, it's like a fraction of a percent of people that are trans. So
it's like 0.3 of 1% of the gross population.
Yeah, it's a really, really small percentage of people. And a majority of people that think they might be trans, if they seek therapy, they later find out that that's not really the case. They were just homosexual or whatever. But when it actually comes down to it, if they go through the process, then they are changing from one gender on the binary spectrum to another. Now, of course, they don't actually ever fully achieve, like, a man doesn't actually become a woman, but she feels more comfortable living that way, and maybe she meets somebody and they can make it work. But
you know what their suicide rate on those people is, right?
Yeah, it's pretty high. And
it's
actually,
it's pretty much the same after they have the surgery than before the surgery.
Yeah,
it's almost identical. They're very close.
Yeah,
and I feel sorry for them. I really do. But I didn't create the universe, and I don't understand why I'm made to pay for it. So
yeah, exactly. And the thing is too is that my main point was not necessarily in defense of or criticism of trans people. Like that's not that's out of my league, you know. Period. But it is not at all connected to the multiple genders thing, because the multiple genders thing is more. There's no science that backs it all. None. Okay.
I know, it's just
It just feels. It's got nothing to do with that, and most of the time it's just young men and women that are confused. Either they're confused about their sexuality, or they're just looking for attention, and then they want to make it into something. That's my experience from what I've seen in most cases. Or they're just making a fashion choice and they think it means it's another gender. Oh, I like to wear pink. That means I'm not quite a man, you know? And it's like, what the fuck? Men can wear pink. Like, if they want. Something else I was thinking about when I had the military guys on, we were talking about it's like two different worlds. The
Yeah.
people who live in live the military life, and the people who don't know anything about it. Do you like run into people who, you know, they've always been civilians and they have really strong opinions about, you know, what we're
Yes.
doing and what it's like, and what do you
You
think
know,
about that? I mean,
listen, I get that all the time. Guys are like, "You're just a simp. You're expendable. You've been brainwashed." And you know, I mean, I love the Army. If I had not gone in the Army, my life would have been nothing but being an assistant manager at Denny's.
yeah,
I mean, and back in the day when I first went in the Army, there was guys that would go in the Army or go to jail. There was guys in there who couldn't even read, and it like totally changes your life because yeah, they treat you poorly in the beginning, and then they build you back up. And in my case, they basically turned me into something completely different. I mean, by the time I went when I went in the Army, I was just a general infantry nug, and then I became a Green Beret. And I mean that's like one of the most elite jobs on the planet.
yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I saw that and I was like, holy shit, a fucking green. That's why I made the snake joke.
Yeah.
But
when I went through there, when I went through selection. When I finished, the sergeant major, he told us what the deal is. He goes, "Listen, we get roughly 4,000 to 5,000 applications to attend, people who want to attend this selection course for special forces, and then we usually weed that down to between 400 and 700 people, and then we send them in. If we say, yeah, you can come, and usually, 20 to 30% of the people don't even show." So there's 500 dudes. It's like 10% of the 5,000 to 7,000. At the end of that, and my selection, out of the 530 people who showed up, they selected 38 people. And then that gave me the right to go to Special Forces school, and usually half of those guys fall out in the school. So out of every 7,000 people, there's like 18 people that could be Green Berets.
holy shit.
It's insane. I mean, they need more people now, so they've like messed with the standard to a certain extent. But like when you come out of that selection, you have the ability to say, "I'm going to move," or "I'm going to do this until I die." And that makes basically when you can do that, your mind has become stronger than your body.
Yeah,
and that's what they want.
Ben Rodriguez from the chat says, being former military, being former special forces, what is the most annoying thing in action movies for you?
Oh my God. One of the things that really pisses me off is whenever they take a gun and point it at somebody, it makes like the clicking sound like they're like loading or whatever the fuck they're doing. I'm like, really? That doesn't even have a trigger. It's internal, and it's gonna click when he points it at you. Like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
I hate that shit.
What's your experience like with the VA? Do you have that?
Well, yeah, they're like, I went to the VA a couple times in the emergency room in Detroit, and they were pretty good. I mean, they get you right in there. But they can only work with what they got, So, I mean, their budget's pretty, constricted. They weren't really paying top dollar, so a lot of doctors wouldn't work there. They wanted to work in private, and they're trying to adjust. And I think they're really trying to do the best they can with what they got.
Yeah,
it's all you can ask.
Yeah. It's just that they're not getting enough, I guess. Do you think that the veterans and our treatment of veterans, do you see that as a men's issue?
Yes, I do actually. I mean, the armed forces are mainly men are there, right? And to get a guy to enlist in the Army costs a lot of money for all of the commercials and all the people that put them through the whole deal to get them into the service. And then they have to feed them, they clothe them, they train them. So there's a big investment into that soldier when he steps out on the deck to do his job. And like these dudes get married, and the woman just says, "I'm not happy," and they destroy this dude's life. And like a lot of guys, they'll have a kid, and the woman will move away with the kid. They'll get out of the service to go after their kid or go be near their kid. So that's a big turnover, and if they could just deal with that, it would save a lot of money.
I heard about some town, I think it was in Canada, but maybe we do this in the States too, where it's a military town, so there's a lot of soldiers there that live there. And they're all like, they have girlfriends or they have wives or whatever. And when they get called out or deployed someplace and they'd leave, the wives or the girlfriends or whatever, they'd put out...
Go to the bar.
Yeah, they go to the bar, but the thing that I heard that they did here is they put out a box of Tide on their front step. And it was a way...
I don't know anything about that.
You don't know anything about that?
Not the Tide thing, but I know, I mean, I've been on active duty posts where whole units were deployed forward, and you go to the bar and there's normally like 17, 18 people there, and then you go one night and there's 500 people there. Most of them are women. You're like, oh shit, this is not going to end well for pretty much anybody here.
Yeah. Somebody in the chat just said Jody. I guess that's what we call them.
Jodies, yep.
Yeah.
That's the one that's banging your piece of a tail back at home while you're out doing your deal.
Have you ever met or talked to or know of Karen Strawn? Girl Rights.
Oh yeah.
What? Okay. Yeah. So
yeah,
she's she's one of the people on this show, so that's usually on. And there is some biology to it, and that's one of the reasons why it can be difficult for MRAs to organize, because there's a lot of men that are just they would see that as competition. That's why you get that whole I'm different, the rules don't apply to me. And I think that's where that comes from, because it's basically like seeing a man who says, look, man, the system is broken, this is bad, and here's my evidence why. Then even the most reasonable dude will be like, oh, well, that's you, but that's not going to happen to me. And so therefore, you're just got to suck it up, Buttercup, and they're going to move on. And
well, like I did a video on this, a comedy on this a while ago. I call it the classic mistakes that men make. We all do them. And the number one thing that we all do that's stupid is we set our own death traps, and we bait them with our pride and arrogance. Mm-hmm. And that's lockstep with what you're saying. So yeah, I mean, you're correct.
I mean that's what I think. I've noticed that when I talk about men's issues with dudes that don't know anything about it, they think of it like, oh, you know what? That's your experience. I'm not going to have that problem. And I've literally had this happen on 2 occasions where guys have said, you know what and I haven't been divorced or anything like that. I don't have that experience, but I see it. And there'll be guys that'll tell me, look, dude, those men are just bitter or, whatever. That's not going to happen to me. And then those guys have had divorces and they've lost half their shit. I know a guy who, he fell in love with a girl that he met at a fucking GameStop. She worked there. And he was like a computer programmer or something. And so he made a lot of money. And he was a lot older than her. She was like in her 20s, and she was going to college, and I think she was going to a medical school. And he fell in love with her. She moved in with him. They got married. And I told him about this stuff, and he was like, "No, what I got is different. This is special."
Yeah.
And the moment she graduated, like, she was totally cool. They got along, but the moment she graduated from college, which he paid for, so originally, the moment she graduated, she was like, "I'm leaving you. There's another guy waiting in the wings. We're getting divorced." She took half his shit. She took the money, like he already paid for her college. He took care of everything. And he can't, now he's like living in this big empty house that he bought for them. And he's trying to figure out, what he needs to do. He's got to sell it. And nobody wants it. And so he's fucked. And I told him, this can happen to you. I'm not saying, obviously, hashtag not all, but this is some shit that you cannot ignore. And the problem is not necessarily women. I think the problem is more specifically the system, because if the system does not exist that women can exploit it, then they're less likely to exploit it. That's my opinion. Maybe you disagree.
No.
But
if you want to have an absolute tyrant, you give them a little bit of power and no accountability. I understand. You want to get married and have kids. I understand. But only do it once. Because if you keep doing it, you are basically insane because you're doing the same thing over and expecting different results. And you didn't learn your fractions when you're in school. Because if you lose half your shit the first time, and half your shit the second time, and half your shit the third time, you are worth 1/8 of what you would have been before you got married. Fractions.
Plus, the odds of you getting a divorce only go up every time that you get married again.
Yes.
So
yes, I have a friend of mine that got married for the third time, and he walks down the aisle, and I'm like, "Congratulations on your 25% chance of success."
Yeah, right.
He was mad as shit at me, man. Mad. Oh, he was so mad. Well, he's like a brother to me, so I've always been. I just tell him how it is. I'm like, hey, you're fucking yourself enough.
Yeah. Did he get divorced yet?
No, not yet. Let's hope not.
Knocked on. Yeah, really.
Yeah. Women today live in America. This is the safest women have been ever. I mean, they have great medical here. They can go to McDonald's and eat like a king 3 times a day, and you can see it in their fat asses. Nobody's shooting at them. They don't even have to do laundry. You don't have to do shit but watch, Jerry Springer or whatever the fuck's on TV. And they still bitch. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly.
And like this whole 80 cents on the dollar thing, first of all, they're not, it's apples to oranges. They're not the same. They're both fruit, but it's different. But the women don't want to hear that.
No.
And this is what I say. I say, when women fill 50% of all coffins of people killed in the workforce, and you're still getting 80 cents on the dollar, then you have something to bitch about. But until that happens, fuck off.